Merci beaucoup. Merci, Madame Fortier. Merci, M. Mona. Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici parmi vous. Good evening. Look, it's been a while since I was in your shoes at university. It's been a long while, actually. It's been a long while, but one of the things is that there are some similarities to our experiences. Okay? Trust me, I'm going to throw them out. The fact is, in particular, we will have both studied and entered the workforce. You will soon enter the workforce during times of immense change. Okay? And I've learned a few things since I graduated, and I've increasingly understood this point that life doesn't proceed in a straight line. And that the history and the progress of nations are punctuated by hinge moments. Times when the future literally hangs in the balance and when our actions can be decisive. Et dans des moments comme celui-ci, nous devons être audacieux. Il faut tracer une nouvelle voie et il faut le faire ensemble. Le Canada traverse un moment comme celui-là aujourd'hui. Les changements technologiques s'accélèrent. The world is more dangerous and divided. The U.S., as we all know, has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. It's raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. And the scale and the speed of these developments are not part of a smooth transition, they're a rupture. And they mean that our economic strategy needs to change dramatically. And they mean as well, even though we both lived through time, or I lived through times of immense change, your future will not be the same as my past. Because my time as a student was marked by events of a similar magnitude, but in a very different direction. When I was your age, the Berlin Wall fell, leading to a long period of liberalization of the movement of goods, capital, and people, leading to a peace dividend. C'était une époque d'optimisme, d'espoir et de promesses. Et ces dynamiques favorisaient particulièrement le Canada. Notre géographie enviable nous donnait l'accès à la plus vaste et à la plus dynamique des économies et nous tenait à distance de la plupart des guerres et des attentats terroristes qui ont eu lieu. So, because of these advantages, over decades our economy grew steadily more integrated with the United States through the Free Trade Agreement of the 1980s, the NAFTA Accord of the 1990s, and eventually USMCA agreement signed in 2018. Canada's trade increased by over 400% during that period, and our economy doubled in size. But this process, this decades-long process of an ever closer economic relationship with the United States, is now over. And as a consequence, many of our former strengths as a country, former strengths more particularly as our economy, strengths based on close ties to America, have become our vulnerabilities. And as a result of that, the jobs of workers in our industries most affected by the U.S. tariffs in autos and steel and lumber are under threat. And our businesses are holding back investments restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. Our relationship with the United States will never again be the same as it was, even though in this new world of protectionism, we have the best trade deal of any other country, and we're working to make it even better still. Now, at the same time that all of this is happening, technology is changing the way we work, live, and communicate. When I was in graduate school, the World Wide Web as we then called it. It was, that was the modern term of the information superhighway, if you ever heard of that. The World Wide Web, as we then called it, was just beginning. We used pen and paper in class. We talked on the telephone to each other. We talked about the same news stories, the same movies, the same bands. My generation was connected by wires, yours is connected by code, and yet our society today is becoming ever more disconnected. Our public square is fragmented by online echo chambers, where truth and fiction can be hard to tell apart, and where contrasting ideas tend to polarize, not persuade. Now, in the context of all this, as Canadians, we have relearned some key lessons over the course of the past year. First, we have to take care of ourselves because we can't rely on one foreign partner. We have to take care of each other because we are stronger together. And we've learned that now is not the time to be cautious because fortune favors the bold. Nous pouvons nous donner beaucoup plus que d'autres ne pourront jamais nous prendre. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Ce sont les Canadiens qui décideront de ce qui se passe ici. It's our country. It's your future. And we are going to give it back to you. Now, to confront a more dynamic, a more competitive, a more hostile world, we must chart a new course, drawing on our many strengths as a country, relying on our values, and being inspired by our history. First, on strengths, Canada has what the world wants. Nous sommes bordés par 3 océans, et nous sommes le seul pays à avoir des accords commerciaux avec chacune des économies du G7. Offrant à nos entreprises un accès inégalé aux marchés mondiaux. We're an energy superpower. We start with the 3rd largest reserves of oil, the 4th largest of natural gas. We have an electricity grid that is 85% clean, and we have the vast potential to power the clean economy of the future. We possess one of the largest resources of critical minerals and rare earths. Le Canada est une chef de file en intelligence artificielle, dans les sciences de la vie et en informatique quantique. Nos universités figurent parmi les meilleures au monde. Merci, madame. Les scientifiques sont parmi les plus cités et elles attirent et forment les meilleurs talents. Vous. Our government has the fiscal capacity to act decisively, and we must draw on these strengths now. Our second advantage is that Canada has the values to which the world aspires. Canada has always been, and we always will be, committed to fundamental human rights, to human dignity, and to individual freedom. We are a pluralistic society. Our cities are the most diverse in the world, places where people bring the best of their cultures. We have a public square that's loud, that's diverse and free. Et les Canadiens et Canadiennes valorisent la collaboration et le partenariat. Et nous sommes résolus à bâtir un avenir durable. Ces valeurs profondes sont aussi des atouts économiques. Elles donnent aux investisseurs la confiance pour bâtir ici. Elles offrent aux innovateurs des bases stables pour prendre des risques ici. Elles donnent au monde des raisons de faire confiance aux Canadiens comme partenaires fiables. L'histoire du Canada est remplie d'aventuriers, de preneurs de risques et de bâtisseurs. Au fil des siècles, pour réussir et prospérer, nous avons dû aller plus loin, construire plus vite et rêver plus grand. il est important de se rappeler que le Canada d'avant la Confédération, c'était une époque d'audace et de prise de risque. Long before Confederation, our country was forged by Indigenous peoples. Coureurs de bois, and voyageurs who mapped this continent and built vast trading networks from coast to coast to coast before the Americans had even left St. Louis. When the Second World War ended, Canada was ambitious, determined, and united in a mission to build big things. The St. Lawrence Seaway, the Trans-Canada Highway, Expo 67, the CN Tower. Nous avons construit de nouveaux quartiers pour des centaines de milliers de vétérans et de leurs familles, et ouvert de nouvelles universités pour lancer leur carrière. On avait le sentiment d'avoir la main sur notre avenir. We used to build things in this country. We can build again. We used to explore this country. We can chart new courses again. We used to take big, bold risks in this country. It is time to swing for the fences again. We learned a little lesson about swinging for the fences a couple nights ago. And this is what the upcoming budget will be about. Building, taking control, and winning. We will make generational investments with a plan to protect our communities, our borders, our way of life. We will build a stronger economy where everyone has a chance to get ahead. And we will empower Canadians with new opportunities, better careers, and lower cost of living. Now, we start with protection, because to build more of what we need, we must protect what we have. Safe communities attract people and families to put down roots, get a home, build a rewarding career, and ensure that children get a good education. So as soon as Parliament opened in the spring, we introduced the strongest legislation in Canadian history to secure our borders and crack down on gun trafficking and illegal drugs such as fentanyl. We introduced new legislation to combat the horrifying rise in hate and violent intimidation, including to protect against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And as I shared last week, we will table legislation for stricter bail and sentencing laws. To help secure our communities, we're hiring 1,000 new RCMP personnel, and to secure our borders, we're hiring 1,000 new border services officers. As we build safer streets and stronger borders, we also must reinforce our sovereignty in that more dangerous and divided world. And that's why Canada's new government is undertaking the largest increase in defense spending in a generation, or in generations to be more precise. And we're forging new partnerships with allies, such as the European Union, to strengthen our shared security. Parce que vous méritez un foyer sûr. Parce que vous méritez de vous sentir en sécurité. Parce que nous défendrons la souveraineté du Canada. Et parce qu'il n'y a pas de prospérité sans sécurité. But look, protection is not enough. We have to build, and our plan to build, first and foremost, is here at home so we can take control of our future, and as I said, give you back yours. In the last 6 months, we've worked to create the right conditions to get big things built faster. At the end of June, we passed the One Canadian Economy Act to remove federal barriers to internal trade and to fast-track the approval of nation-building projects. In August, we opened the Major Projects Office, which serves as a single point of contact to get those nation-building projects built faster. Des projets qui vont connecter, vont diversifier, et vont pousser. Des projets qui vont exporter vers de nouveaux partenaires partout dans le monde. Des projets qui vont créer des centaines de milliers d'emplois bien rémunérés, de bons emploi syndiqué pour les travailleurs canadiens. Now, last month, we announced the first tranche, the first group of these major projects, with over $60 billion of investments in nuclear power and LNG, in carbon capture and critical minerals, and in new trade corridors. And we outlined strategies from offshore wind to high-speed rail and a sovereign cloud to drive hundreds of billions in further investment, all while creating the conditions for a better connected, more productive, and more ambitious country. And the thing is, we are just getting started. Our next tranche of nation-building projects will be announced by the Grey Cup. After the World Series, but by the Grey Cup. And at the core of our strategy will be to catalyze unprecedented investments in Canada over the next 5 years. That's what's going to come above and beyond these projects. Parce que nous nous concentrons aussi sur la construction de millions de nouveaux logements qui vont renforcer nos communautés. Construire plus vite avec des technologies canadiennes, des travailleurs canadiens, du bois canadien et de l'acier canadien. Construire des logements que les Canadiens peuvent réellement se permettre. We launched Build Canada Homes here in Ottawa to help double the pace of housing construction within a decade using new factory technology, cutting building times by 50%, reducing costs by 20%, and lowering emissions by 20%. Now, it's not just what we build, it's also how we build. We will build inclusively in full partnership with Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, every step of the way. We will build in solidarity with workers, creating good union jobs. And Budget 2025 will introduce our climate competitiveness strategy. With a focus on results over objectives, on investments over prohibition, we will build sustainably. Le budget va contenir une nouvelle stratégie pour bâtir de façon durable et compétitive pour l'avenir du Canada. On va se concentrer sur les résultats plutôt que sur les objectifs, sur les investissements plutôt que les interdictions. Nous bâtirons de façon durable en misant sur l'énergie, le transport, le logement et la fabrication à faible émission pour renforcer notre compétitivité. Parce que réduire les émissions n'est pas seulement un devoir moral, c'est aussi un impératif économique. Our strategy will recognize that in today's global economy, we have to build sustainably. It's not just a moral duty, it's also an economic imperative. It is a moral duty, but it's an economic imperative. Now, above all, we will build Canadian. The new security threats the world is bringing to our shores means we're making the biggest investments in our military in generations. But up until now, more than 70 cents of every dollar of military spending, military capital spending by our government goes to the United States. With our new Defense Investment Agency, we will make sure we build more of our security defense capabilities here at home, creating new careers in aerospace and shipbuilding and cyber and AI for Canadian engineers, technicians, and scientists. It's the same thing in steel. Consider that while 80% of the steel that Europe buys is manufactured in Europe, 75% of the steel that the US buys is manufactured in the US. Only 40% of the steel that we use is made here. That doesn't make sense. Not when we have the people, the resources, and the companies to build right here in Canada. So our upcoming budget will move forward with our Buy Canadian policy, prioritizing Canadian steel, aluminum, lumber, manufactured good, and technology for Canadian projects. And with new orders for homes, infrastructure, and defense equipment becoming orders for Canadian suppliers. We will be our own best customer. So the welder who's working on a contract in St. John's can get a full-time job. Et pour qu'un ingénieur de l'Université d'Ottawa et une carrière de grande qualité qui l'attendent ici au Canada. Now, our partners around the world are already taking note of new Canadian ambition. Last month, we signed a historic free trade deal with Indonesia, the world's fourth largest country by population. We've just signed foundational agreements with the United Arab Emirates in AI, and with the EU in defense and trade, and with Germany in critical minerals. We're re-engaging with global giants India and China while we deepen our partnerships with our traditional allies. And to build on this momentum, and to put it in context, our goal for Canada is to double our non-US exports over the course of the next decade, generating more than $300 billion more in trade, and that's new orders for Canadian resources, technologies, and expertise. Now, we spoke of protection and building, we move to empowering. Each of you in this room and in the overflow room, each of you is here to get an education that you need to go out and build the future that you want. To be empowered with a better shot at the life you want for yourself and your family. We will keep building a country where more people have more of those opportunities. Nous continuerons de soutenir les plus vulnérables, d'offrir un répit à ceux qui ont du mal à s'en sortir en bâtissant un pays où la vie est abordable. C'est le troisième objectif de notre plan, donner à tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes les moyens de réussir. So, we start by lowering costs with programs and services that provide strong foundations for a good life. So the first thing that we did, the absolute first thing we did after the election was to cut taxes for all Canadians who pay tax, delivering tax savings for more than 22 million Canadians. We cut taxes to reduce the cost of housing for first-time homebuyers, some of whom I hope are in this room, immediately making the goal of home ownership a reality for more Canadians with young families. All of the big projects that we're driving forward, from new housing and new ports and clean energy, will create high-paying careers, many of them union careers here in Canada. It will be a great time to be in the trades. But as well in the budget, we will unlock new apprenticeships, new skills training programs, and a new talent strategy for the next generation of scientists and innovators who will build our country. And as we build new industries and create new markets, you will be equipped with the skills you need to succeed with those opportunities. Because when Canadians empower each other, everyone benefits, and Canada prospers. Vocês à ce moment charnière, nous devrons prendre des décisions difficiles. Nous devrons transformer la façon dont l'État fonctionne, dépenser moins pour que les Canadiens investissent davantage, bâtissent notre pays et créent de meilleures carrières. The upcoming budget will balance the operating deficit in 3 years by reducing wasteful government spending and doing more with less. The fact is that federal spending has been growing over the course of the last decade by more than 7% year over year. We've been spending faster than our economy was growing. So we have to change that, and our government is changing that. As one example, we just completed a 60-day red tape review that identified nearly 500 new ways to streamline government services, cut duplication, and reduce costs. And when we saw that Canada Post was losing $10 million a day, Madam President, would you like to have $10 million a day? Imagine what you could do for the university with $10 million a day. Canada Post losing $10 million a day. We made responsible choices. But the fact is, even with such efficiencies and with better management, we will have to do less of some of the things that we want to do so we can do more of what we must do to build a bigger and better Canada. Ce budget va protéger les programmes essentiels qui donnent à chaque Canadien une vraie chance d'avancer. On va protéger le régime canadien de soins dentaires qui permettent enfin à plus de 5 millions de Canadiens d'avoir accès à des soins dentaires abordables. Et on va rendre permanent le programme national d'alimentation scolaire qui aide 400 000 enfants à recevoir chaque jour des repas sains. We will protect the National Child Care Program for the over 900,000 children who are getting a strong start that they deserve, and for their parents who no longer have to choose between raising a family and keeping their careers. And as well, our budget will also bring in automatic federal benefits so that the millions of low-income Canadians who aren't part of the system can get the support that they need. Now, we need to be clear-eyed about where we stand today so we can build for tomorrow. Let me give the current economic context. I'm channeling my old central banker days here. But the situation in Canada now, the actual situation, is that the rate of inflation has come down. It's come down sharply. But it's also the case that the cost of living is still far too high. It's also the situation in Canada right now that we're building a lot more homes. Housing starts are up this year. And affordability of those houses are improving. But it's still challenging. We need to build many, many more homes, and we need to build them a lot faster. This government is getting immigration under control, with asylum claims down by a third and new temporary foreign workers down by more than 70% this year. To match immigration levels with our needs and our capacity to welcome them, this budget will include Canada's new immigration plan to do better for newcomers and for everyone. It's also the fact that in this economy, we are creating jobs as a whole across it. And it is the fact that we are forecast to be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 over the course of the next 2 years. Even though some critical sectors, I mentioned earlier, autos, steel, lumber, forest products, aluminum, and some regions are facing big, big pressures. So the facts are that at present, despite everything, despite these big changes, our economy is holding up. But it's equally true that if we don't act now, these pressures will only grow. And more fundamentally, our goal is not just to do reasonably well, but to grow stronger than the rest of the G7. And as we work to do so, I want to make this promise to Canadians. I will always be straight about the challenges that we face and the choices that we must make. And to be clear, we won't transform our economy easily or in a few months. It will take some sacrifices, and it will take some time. Our government will work relentlessly to cut waste and drive efficiencies. And when we have to make difficult choices, we will be thoughtful, we will be transparent, we will be fair. We will work collaboratively with our colleagues across the aisle to build, protect, and empower Canadians. We won't play games. We won't waste time. And we won't hold back. We will do what it takes. We will play to win. We will bet on Canada and all Canadians. Je fais cette promesse aux Canadiens. Je serai toujours franc au sujet des défis que nous devons affronter et des choix que nous devrons faire. Nous n'allons pas transformer notre économie facilement ni en quelques mois. Cela exigera certains sacrifices et cela prendra du temps. Notre gouvernement travaillera sans relâche pour éliminer le gaspillage et améliorer d'efficacité. Et lorsque nous devrons faire des choix difficiles, nous le ferons avec réflexion et transparence. Nous travaillerons en collaboration avec nos collègues de tous les partis pour bâtir, protéger et donner plus de pouvoir aux Canadiens. Nous ne jouerons pas de jeu et nous ne perdrons pas de temps. Nous ne retiendrons pas. Nous ferons tout ce qu'il faut. Nous jouerons pour gagner. Nous miserons sur le Canada et sur tous les Canadiens. C'est notre pays, c'est votre avenir. Nous allons vous en donner le contrôle. And to finish, because we're all in this together, I ask you to get involved. The fact you're here this evening, we do many other things, shows that you're interested in being involved. Get involved. Look out for each other. Look after each other. I know from the history that I read in university and the history that I've lived since graduating, that fortune truly does favor the bold. And the hinge of fate will turn on what Canada does right now. We're going to have to change how we do some things. But we will never change who we are. This moment has revealed, yes, the limits to our economic independence. Limits that we must tackle head on, and we will. But more importantly, what it's revealed is a nation that's more determined, generous, hardworking, compassionate, and ambitious than any other on earth. We are Canada strong. Canada for all. Vive Canada.